Hi, I'm Lee from Anything Audible, and I'd like to show you a little behind-the-scenes video here of what we do in audio post-production. And sometimes you might not think about how much work goes into preparing to do sound for a movie, and this is one of the elements, whereas what we call Foley spotting. And Foley spotting allows us to prepare to record all the Foley sounds that we kind of take for granted. On set, production audio is designed just to record the dialogue, and it's our job to go in there and recreate the movement that people make, the characters make on set. You know, for example, looking at this guy here, he's kind of kneeled down in the grass and he's pouring a coffee into a flask. So all of these sounds are going to be eventually recorded. But let's take a look at what we have to do to prepare for this. And in this particular session, it's a small session here that we've got. Before we do that, though, let's kind of break down what we're recording. So we're preparing to record footsteps. You know, that's one of the elements of Foley, very important because we move. He's wearing boots on grass, so these are the things that we need to record. And our props, which, for example, in this case, like I mentioned before, is the flask and the coffee pot, is typically two props that we'd use in this scene. Hands. People who know me very well and know that I like to talk with my hands, and it's amazing how much movement we actually do with our hands. You know, for example, his elbow is on his knee, so he's going to be moving that in a second. So this is typically what we would have to record in Foley. And cloth, the same thing. You know, he's wearing heavy trousers, so we're going to have to record those. And let me move the video out of the way a little bit. We can still see this, but these are the placeholders that we have. Now we're going to record over those. So that allows us to record certain elements that we're going to do in Foley. So, you know, so for example, this is preparing for when I bring in my Foley artist, Ben Conley. He will be recording these in a separate room, and I'll show you that in another video, but for now, let's see how we prepare for this. So there's one area here I haven't covered, which I've done this on purpose, of course, for this. And you notice that, you know, we've got the trouser here, we've got the coffee pour. So when we play this, you know, he's pouring the coffee. You know, we need the actual canteen as it's the canteen is separate, but we need the coffee pot up and down. You see how he's picking that up off the grass and he's placing it down. So I need to make one of these placeholders, these regions that we can create, which we'll record over. So I've just selected in my timeline, you know, I just create this region here, and I'm going to rename it, and we're going to be real clever about this, right? So we just say coffee pot up, down, grass. So right there, when we're recording it, we know exactly what we're doing. We're preparing for this. We're going to say, okay, we need a coffee pot. We need to be picking it up, and we need to put it down on a grass surface. So these regions themselves are going to tell us what we need to do. So let me just play this movie back so we can, instead of me talking here, you know, let's have an example, right? Here's this guy, you know, he's basically walking through the grass, the long grass, and you can see that in this region, for example, and you have the canteen itself. That's going to make movement. Look at that strap that's moving around. That's something we're going to pick up on as well. And that's the up and down grass and the canteen, and then the slosh as the coffee moves, and then he places the cap on it, you know, the lid on that. These are all the elements we have to do separately. You know, these are all on separate tracks, and eventually we'll mix all this together with dialogue and everything else. But that's another video we can look at later. So he comes back, he's walking back to his family, and he's going to go out hunting because that's what they do in this world, right? They have to go out and get their food. So he puts his arrows away into a bag, and that's going to make a lot of sound with the zip and everything else. And the knife that he pulled out of his bag, you know, all these are spotted, so we can actually record that. Even the cooler, you know, opening and closing, all the movement and the arrow rattles, you know, that's going to happen. So he comes back to his family here. His kid's kind of having a bit of a nightmare there. And he kind of reassures his wife. And, he's crawling across the floor, so we're going to have to do that. And, there we go. We have a kiss on the hand, and he gets up. Of course, your trousers are going to make movement as you're walking. The bag, you place the bag down. And you can see all these areas that we've done. Mom leans across, reassures him a little bit, and he prepares to go out hunting. And so he's putting the dirt on his face and everything else. So we cut back to him, and we have, the bow movement, the arrow, what we call an arrow clank, those arrows moving in the bag. And that's a good look into how we can prepare Foley for any given project. I'd like to thank you for joining me on this episode of 2 Pop Tips, and hopefully you'll tune in next time for another behind the scenes look at audio post-production. I'll see you then.